Today is Saturday, the 13th of December, 2025, and we're gathered here for the 211th Mindfulness for Beginners session. On behalf of the organizers, I'd like to welcome, with great reverence, Venerable Homagama DhammaKusala Thero, who is representing the Nissarana Vanaya Forest Monastery, to today's session. And I'd like to welcome all the organizers and participants taking part via Zoom and also watching via Facebook Live today. We do treat this as a in-person camera on session, and so any participants who feel able to and comfortable to do so, we encourage you to switch on your cameras to create a sense of community among the group participating today. And as usual, we will start our session with our in-session mindfulness practice. And for that, I would like to invite Venerable DhammaKusala Thero to lead us and guide us in today's practice. Over to you, Bhante, with much merits.
Thanks, Sarosha. Hello, everyone. Let's take some time to do a mindful walk-in session today. For this, you can select some space where you are able to walk in a comfortable manner. Once you have selected your space, you start walking back and forth in that space. And while walking, we try to keep our attention with the steps. We can feel the texture, temperature of the ground. We can feel which parts of our feet is touching the ground. That way we try to keep our attention with the steps, and time to time our attention might go into thoughts, certain memories, future planning, maybe even surrounding sights, sounds. These things grab our attention, but we can become aware and we can return our attention back to the steps. Again, when we return, we can feel the texture, temperature of the ground. We can feel which parts of our feet is touching the ground. That way, let's try to walk mindfully. Let's try to take as many mindful steps as possible. And whenever you get carried away, you can realize and you can return back to the walking sensations. Till you hear a bell sound, you can continue the mindful walking. Okay, everyone. That's our time to do a mindful walk-in session today. With that, you can return to your seats.
Much merits, Bhante. Thank you very much for that guided walking meditation session. We now come to the section of the session where we invite Bhante to deliver a short talk relating to mindfulness practice and to support us in that. So now I would very much like to invite Bhante to deliver today's talk to help guide us and help us continue in our practice. Over to you again, Bhante. And after this, Samantha will take over with the Q&A and report reading. So over to you, Bhante.
Yes, we have a new topic today, and it's an interesting topic. So we will take some time to discuss this particular idea and try to relate this idea to our mindfulness practice. Now, in our lives, when we experience things, naturally we feel like these things are in conflict with each other. For example, let's say good and bad. You feel like when good and bad, they are in conflict with each other. When you try to establish good in your life, time after time you can see the conflict with the things that are bad. When you try to protect some precepts, time after time you can see that at times the precepts are broken. So that way, when you try to do good, when you try to establish good in your life, unavoidably you encounter bad as well. And that's one example. This is how you feel that the good and bad, they are in conflict with each other. Then maybe we can take something else. Light and dark. When you see the daytime, naturally the nighttime follows. And during the winter months, you can feel the nighttime is increasing and the daytime is reduced. Right? So you feel like there's a conflict between these two. And it feels like the nighttime or the darkness is taking over the daytime. Especially during the winter, you can feel that. That's also we feel that it's in conflict with each other. Then maybe when you try to establish order in your life, if you have certain tendencies to establish order in your life, then time after time you get to encounter disorder or chaos. That also become a part of that struggle. Sometimes you are the person who will arrange all the things. You are the person who will try to establish order in your family. And there might be some other family members who are creating disorder, who are creating chaos. Right? So that way, if you have a need to establish order, if you try to establish order, then you can feel that chaos or disorder also come into play. Sometimes you struggle to keep your order because of the other people, other situations. And if you have OCD tendencies, that can create a lot of anxiety within you. Because you try to establish order, but somehow the disorder comes. right? So this way, when we take these things, we can feel that these two sides, these different aspects, they are in conflict with each other. If you take good and bad, it feels like they are in conflict with each other. If you say take light and darkness, it feels like they are in conflict with each other. If you take order and disorder, it feels like they are in conflict with each other. That way you get to experience this time after time. And even let's say when you try mindfulness, naturally you get to see unmindfulness in your mind. You try to establish mindfulness, but in the process you come with so many complaints, saying that my mind is all over the place, I can feel so many thoughts. Time after time, my mind is dragged away by these thoughts. So you try to establish mindfulness in your mind, but in the process, you get to experience unmindfulness more and more. Especially beginners, they say, I feel like my mind is more and more unmindful. When you start the practice, when you try to establish mindfulness, this happens, right? So you feel like that the mindfulness and unmindfulness, they too are in conflict with each other. The meditators, they complain about that. They say, there's a conflict within me. Mindfulness versus unmindfulness. That way you might feel, right? So this is how we feel about these things. This is how we feel about life. We feel these different aspects, these opposite aspects, they are in conflict with each other. Like that sign, that symbol of yin and yang. I'm sure you have seen that Zen symbol where one side is dark and the other side is light. They are in conflict with each other. Usually in that symbol also we feel that there's a struggle between those two. There's a conflict between those two. Light and dark, they are in conflict. Yin and yang symbol, right? But when you really think about that symbol, if you remove the darker part, the black part, then the white part will also disappear. If you remove the white part, then the black part will also disappear. This way you can see, even in that symbol, that yin and yang symbol, you can see both the dark part and the light part, they too are interdependent. When you take out one side, the other side will also disappear. Although it feels like these two sides are in conflict, when you remove one part, the other part will also disappear. That means they are interdependent. Although it appears like they are in conflict, in reality, they are interdependent, right? So that's the very idea in that symbol as well. So in our life, when we feel like these opposite things are in conflict, that's an illusion that we are experiencing. In reality, these opposite sides, they are interdependent. That's the whole idea for this week. You can see the quote. It's about a magnet. When you take a magnet, you can see a north pole and a south pole. You feel like these are opposite poles in a magnet. Right? In a way, that's true. These are opposite sides, opposite poles of the magnet. But when you try to chop off a single pole from a magnet, what will happen is that can you just separate a north pole from a magnet? Can you just separate a south pole from a magnet? You can try and see. When you try that, naturally, the magnet becomes two magnets. If you try to remove the north pole, then a south pole is created in that part. If you try to remove the south pole, a north pole is created in the opposite side of that part. So you can see you can't separate a single pole of a magnet. That's not possible. Instead, always there'll be two poles. It doesn't matter how many parts you create out of a magnet, still all those parts will have two poles, two opposite poles. So that's the idea. Even when we think about our life, when we consider the things that we experience in our life, all these things are interdependent. It's a duality, or it's a polarity that we are experiencing. If you try to remove one side of it, that's not successful because the other side also follows. It's like a magnet. You can try to chop off a single pole from a magnet, but although you try, naturally, the opposite pole also follows. That's how the life is. That's how this world is. Many people in their lives, they try to maximize, create pleasure. They try to minimize, destroy pain. That's what they do, the pain-pleasure principle. So their whole effort is simply to maximize and create pleasure, minimize and destroy pain. Whatever you name it, all these industries, they are focused on that. If you think about beauty culture, that industry, or plastic surgeries, things like that, it's about creating pleasure and reducing or destroying pain. You think about medicine, maybe painkillers, things like that, the same idea. Then those travel advertisements, the whole idea is simply to go and enjoy only the good part, the pleasurable part. Right? So that way, all these industries, they are focused on creating and maximizing pleasure minimizing or destroying pain. That's how they try. Many people, billionaires in this world, they try to use their money only to experience the pleasurable part of life. But unfortunately, no matter how much they try, no matter how many hours or effort that they put, no matter how much money they spend, still the pain follows. They only want to experience pleasure, but naturally the pain follows them. If you read those biographies, sometimes you can see no matter how much they try to spend money, no matter how much effort they put, they always get to experience pain in life. So sometimes they get depressed, and maybe towards the end of their life, they commit suicide or they live in a depression. Right? So that way, although they try to single out pleasure part, that's not possible. Right? So that's the very nature of this life. It's a duality. It's a polarity. You can't single out a particular part that you like. You can't just simply remove the parts that you don't like. Instead, you have to understand these things are interdependent. These things, they are a duality. They are a polarity. So in our mindfulness practice, the whole idea is simply to understand this polarity or duality. Let's say in your mind, maybe it's so crowded, you talk, think, work non-stop. That's how you have been functioning. You have this compulsive need to think. You have this compulsive need to talk. You have this compulsive need to move your body, do something with it. Right? So that's how most of us function. Even these days, there is a yogi here who is residential. Starting from the very first day, that fellow is talking non-stop. Even disturbing other people, not allowing them to meditate. Right? So you can see there's a compulsive need to talk. And compulsive need to move the body. Compulsive need to think continuously. That's how our minds are. That's how our bodies are. Right? So maybe we have experienced only this side of our mind and body. That is the side, the thinking, talking, working side. So in our practice, we encourage the beginners to experience the other side of things, the opposite extreme. We tell them, arrange your seat in a comfortable manner and try to simply keep your body still. We tell them you can gently close your eyes and you can close your mouth as well. You try to be silent for a while. You try to be still in your body for a while. And even the thought processes in the minds also, we encourage them to not think. Instead, simply be mindful. Simply Notice the breathing in the body. That way, they are encouraged to experience the opposite extreme of what they have been experiencing. Although it is advised to do that, the beginners, they struggle a lot. They say, I can't keep my body still. I can't keep my eyes closed. I feel like there are some involuntary jerks in my body, and without my voluntary involvement, the body keeps moving sometimes. Involuntarily, the eyes open in the sitting session. Sometimes they start whispering to themselves or talking to themselves in the mouths. They can't keep them shut. And we don't have to talk about the mind. The mind is all over the place, full of noises, full of thoughts, full of chaos. Right? So that's how the beginners start. If you are at that level, you don't have to get discouraged. That is natural, because your entire life you have practiced only one extreme. Thinking, talking, working, that extreme. And it'll take some time to get used to the opposite extreme, which is not thinking, keeping the silence, and keeping the body still. You have to spend some time to develop this ability. That way, gradually you can experience the other extreme in your meditation. What is the other extreme? You keep yourself still, the body is still, you keep the mouth shut, you are not talking anything, and you can see a mind without thoughts. Maybe with few days, few weeks of practice, many people, they get to experience this extreme in their practice. So in a way, that is progress. It's good to experience that part. It's good to feel that you have that potential. That way, in our practice, we develop our ability to experience the other extreme of our mind, the quieter side, the side where the mind is empty of thoughts, the side where you appreciate the silence instead of the sounds, the side where you appreciate being still instead of getting involved in certain things. That way, it's good progress for a beginner to experience this other extreme. And it gives them a good break in their life, because they have been experiencing, maybe for many decades, they have been experiencing this opposite extreme, where you continuously or where you compulsively think, where you compulsively talk, and where you compulsively move your body. You have been experiencing that extreme in your life. Now you are experiencing the opposite extreme. So it's good to experience that. It's good progress in your practice. You see that there is a quieter part of your mind. You see that you can appreciate the silence instead of the sounds. You see that you can stay away from these situations without interfering. That's a good potential to develop. Because in our life, we feel like whenever there are things happening, we have to interfere. You try to interfere or meddle in other people's lives, especially if they are your friends and family, then you interfere with their lives a lot. You try to interfere or meddle in children's lives. That way we have developed only the capacity to interfere with other matters, other things. And as a result, sometimes it can create a lot of anxiety. Especially, let's say, if the children are teenagers, young adults, then you can feel a lot of friction from their side. Whenever you try to do something or tell something, they do the exactly opposite. Right? They can't help it. That's their nature. You give them some advice, they do the opposite side of it. That way, it can create a lot of anxiety. And whenever you see things, whenever you see certain things happening, you have to always get involved in them. And as a result, you get to experience a lot of friction in life. Whenever something is happening, you can't stay away from it. You can feel that you are getting into conflict with other people. Right? So that way, it's good to practice not interfering with things. You stay like a statue. You are aware, you know what is happening, but you don't get involved in it. You don't meddle in other people's matters. We say, mind your own business and be mindful. That way you can practice approaching these situations in a different way. Because we have been approaching the usual way and it hasn't worked. It has created a lot of friction, anxiety in our lives. So it's a good time to try the other opposite side, other extreme, where we practice not to interfere with these things. Or maybe whenever certain questions, certain sounds are there, you always feel like you have to answer. Sometimes it can be a headache. There are people who are asking so many questions. They talk compulsively, they keep asking questions. So if you start answering them, it's not gonna turn out good for you. Instead of talking, instead of answering or making sounds, you stay like a mute. And silence, sometimes it's a good answer for many questions. We have to practice it. There's a world famous piece of music. I think that's called 3 minutes and 22 seconds, something like that. That's the name of it. And the whole piece is about silence. The guy sits in front of a piano and simply doesn't make any noise. 3 minutes and 22 seconds. Silence for 3 minutes and 22 seconds. And for the maybe in the audience, many people, for the very first time in their lives, they get to experience silence. And they appreciate it as a masterpiece. Right? So that extreme is also valid. You don't have to answer all the questions. Sometimes silence would be the best answer for certain situations. And when we think about thinking, we feel like we won't be able to survive without planning ahead. We feel like we won't be able to survive without thinking about things. That's how we feel. We have this compulsive need to think, plan. But maybe past couple of weeks, many people, they have experienced, people in Sri Lanka, they have experienced a life without planning due to the disaster, hurricane. All their plans, they were destroyed by the hurricane. Even their homes are destroyed. Maybe even family members are destroyed. Right? So the nature sometimes teaches the toughest lessons. Still, many people, they have survived. Without all the planning, without all the arrangements, somehow they survived. Right? So you can try that part as well. We think a lot. Thinking is overrated in this world. We plan a lot. Planning is overrated in this world. We try to control each and every aspect of our life. We try to think about each and every aspect of our life. But there is a life without planning. You can live a life without planning. You can be open to the many possibilities in the present moment. Now these days, there's a yogi, I think he's from Australia or somewhere, and he's a person who plans a lot. So we have a working hour, voluntary work. During that hour, we do certain projects. And in the process, he had a insight. He was telling Bante, usually we do these things with lot of planning, but now I feel like I'm going with the flow. And even the task is done or completed much better without all the planning and thinking. Right? So there is a life without so much planning, so much thinking. But we have to identify that. We have to understand how to live that way. It's not easy. Right? So that way, the practitioners, they get to experience the other extreme of things. But when they mature in their practice, the real understanding comes when they realize that this is a duality that we live in. It's a polarity that we live in. Truly understanding this interdependent nature. That's how you can develop your mind to a level where you experience Nibbana. You truly understand this interdependent nature of life. You truly understand how yin is dependent on yang and yang is dependent on yin. When you truly understand that interdependent nature, you will let go of both the extremes. Earlier, maybe you were in the bad extreme. during the practice period, you started appreciating good. But when you move towards Nibbana, you let go of both good and bad. Because you understand both good and bad, they are interdependent. Right? So that very understanding is important in your practice when you mature into a certain level. The beginners, of course, they have to appreciate the good side of things. They have to appreciate the mindfulness side of things. They have to appreciate no thinking or no talking or no working type of things. But when you reach a certain level, naturally the practice will evolve into a certain level, and you can really feel how these things are interdependent. How certain views are followed by the opposite views. How going after good will be followed by bad. How establishing order will be followed by chaos. Right? So that way, this interdependent nature, you have to understand, and that part will come when you continue your practice for some time. There's this interesting passage in the Tripitaka where Venerable Kaccayana asked a certain question from Buddha. He was asking Bhante, what is the right view? How to understand the right view? That was the question asked by Venerable Kaccayana. And in that occasion, the Buddha's explanation, he was telling that the world relies on the duality. Existence and non-existence. That's how Buddha explains it during that occasion. The world relies on duality, the duality of existence and non-existence. And Buddha says, when one sees the arising of the world with the right understanding, when one sees the arising of the world with the right understanding, he will get rid of non-existence view. If there is a view about non-existence, that view will disappear in this person, because time after time, this person experiences how the world is arising. Then the Buddha says, when one sees the cessation of the world with right understanding, when one sees the cessation of the world with the right understanding, he will let go of the existence world or existence view. When this person sees arising of the world, he will let go of the non-existence view. When this person sees the cessation of the world, he will let go of the existence view. So both existence view and non-existence view, it's a duality. So Buddha defines the right view as this. This person, he has seen the arising of things and hence let go of the non-existence view. This person, he has seen the cessation of things and hence let go of the existence view. As a result, this person comes to the right understanding or right view. Simply letting go of the duality. Letting go of the existence and non-existence view. Simply that person understands that this is interdependent. The world arises and due to that the world ceases. The world ceases and due to that the world arises. So basically this person understands there's this interdependent nature. There's this duality. There's this polarity. That's how one can create right view. So we can see in our meditation, we are also experiencing the arising of the world. We can feel how the thoughts are appearing out of nowhere. Many people, they talk about this part. The thoughts are coming. I am disturbed. But if they wait long enough, then they can see the cessation of the thoughts. The appeared thoughts, they disappear after a while. That part you can experience in your meditation. So you can see it's interdependent. The thoughts arise and they cease. That's how it works. Time after time, we have to experience this in our practice. Let the thoughts appear. Let the thoughts disappear. When the thoughts appear, you feel like there is a self, existence of a self, because I am thinking. René Descartes, he was saying, I think, therefore I am. The thoughts come, therefore there's this self. And when the thoughts disappear, you get to experience the other extreme. You get to see the cessation of the existing self. That too is a part of the practice. You can see the cessation of your breath, the cessation of the self. You can see it, right? So that way, time after time we experience this, and naturally the mind will understand that this is a duality. Or the mind will come to the right view, letting go of both existence and non-existence view. Right? So that's the very idea of this practice. And in the process, we get to understand this whole world is a duality. In our meditation, we get to experience that time after time. So I hope this particular topic was useful. And next time also we can take some time to discuss certain other aspects of this. Thank you for listening.
Thank you, Bhante, for that really valuable talk and very interesting. And thank you, Arosha, as well, for the beginning part of the session. I'll, with Bhante's permission, I'll in a bit later on, I'll read the reports that we have received. In fact, we've received one report so far, and if anyone has any questions on this valuable talk or on their practice as well, please do raise your hand or put your question in the chat, either to me personally or in the chat just generally. There's also one question someone had put, which I'll read out later in the chat. But before I go on to read this week's reports, I'd like to just remind everyone, especially for any newcomers, the basic guidance on how to meditate, and submit your experiences in the report to Bhante. And I think the links might be in the chat, or they'll be put on the chat later on. Then once you submit your reports, Bhante will give valuable guidance and advice how to progress in your meditation, depending on your experiences. And also in the actual Nissarana website, you can have a look. There are two helpful video links put together by Nissarana Vanaya on both examples of what we just did this morning, mindful walking, and also mindful sitting to help your practice. And you can allocate some time for the practice daily as well, to help starting with walking and then sitting, and gradually building up to say daily 2 hours per day. And that certainly will help, especially with what Bhante was talking about this morning as well. Then please submit your experiences in writing, both in mindful walking and mindful sitting to Bhante. And there's also an example in the web on how to actually do this. So, for example, if you're walking, you can describe any prominent sensations, textures on the ground, any pressure points on the soles, and how the body weight shifted. Similarly, in the sitting meditation, again, you can refer to any prominent sensations like incoming and outgoing breath at the nostrils, rising of the abdomen, etc. And again, you can also write your experiences away from the sitting or walking meditations, but how your experiences during daily activities during the day, which is also very important, how one is being mindful throughout the day. And then in the session, Bhante will give valuable guidance for your own practice and how to progress in your meditation. So that will be really helpful for your practice. You can then send your reports either in the Google form or by email using the links in the website, Nissarana website. So this is a good opportunity to get personal guidance from Bhante and on how your meditation is progressing, and you can continue with your mindful practice during the week according to the advice given to your own report during the session. And also, I'd just like to remind the recordings of the session are also available if you want to revisit, and they all recorded and posted in the website of Nissarana Vanaya. Okay, now I'll go to read the reports. Bhante, we have one report received by an adult. Let me just pull that up. And again, if anyone has any questions on the talk, on their practice, do put it in the chat and I'll read out to Bhante. So the first report we have is on mindful walking by the adult. Venerable Swamin Mahansa walked observing feet as left and right. Floor was rough and hard. Further, could identify its dampness and coldness. Could observe 8 footsteps in a length. Various thoughts appeared and disappeared. heard sounds. Then on mindful sitting, observed posture as a statue, thought, I'm here now. Belly motions were observed, gradually became vague, then put attention on other conspicuous sensations in body, felt a vibration near right ear. It changed time to time. Felt touching of the legs, hands and seat. Legs disappeared. Theruwan Saranai, Uttum Swami Mahansa. That's the end of the report, Bante.
Okay, good observation. Now you can see various objects are appearing in your meditation, like the thoughts, various other sensations, things like that. And sometimes even vibrations come. When these vibrations appear, many people, they complain that my breath has disappeared and now I feel a vibration. I feel a vibration in certain parts of my body. That way they complain, but you have to understand the very primary or the basic form of all these things. It's a vibration. Out of this vibration, sometimes the breath appears, or the belly movements appear, or the thoughts appear. But the basic form, you can simply say it's a vibration. So in a way, these things, these material things, you can feel that they are there. But you have to understand, whatever the things that you are experiencing, comparatively, it's smaller than the things that we don't experience. According to sciences, they say that the matter is only about 5%. 5% of the entire universe or the world. And now they are talking about various things like dark energy, dark matter. And the rest of the things, 95 of the things, are dark energy and dark matter. So you can't feel them. You can't experience them. Right? So in our meditation also, we start with the prominent ones. We start with the things or the known things. But gradually our mind is led towards the unknown. That unknown is vast compared to the known part. The known part is only the 5% of this world. The unknown is 95% of the world. And when you get to experience the unknown part, naturally, you understand the comparison between them. You understand the proper weight of the known to unknown. That very understanding is important. When you are in the material things, when you are in the known things, it is usually with friction. But in the unknown, there's no friction. Right? So the very effort is simply to understand this comparison. Give the proper weight to these sides. Give the proper weight to the known and the unknown. And when you give the proper weight, naturally, you can see, although there is friction in the known part, it is only 5%. Even arahants, they feel friction. Moving this body, feeding, maintaining, sickness, certain weather or the insects, they feel friction. But in their minds, they know, or they have given the proper weight. They have seen the unknown part. Comparatively to that unknown, known part is smaller. Known part is only 5%. Right? When you know that 95% is peaceful, that 5% you can bear it. You can accept that friction because you know that you are free for 95% of the time. Right? That very part is the meditation, and naturally you can see in your practice that you are gradually driven towards the unknown. That's why these vibrations appear. Earlier maybe they were proper sensations like breath, but now it appears like a vibration. And that very vibration will direct you towards the unknown. That very path, that's the whole meditation. Earlier you have been living in the 5% of the known things. But now you are driven into this vast unknown, which consists of like 95% of the universe. And when that happens, naturally the friction in the known part, it is not affecting us that much. It is simply a minor discomfort in life. Right? So continue and allow these things to manifest, or allow your mind to go from known to unknown.
Thank you, Bhante. And I think we have another question in the chat, which I'll read. And also, I forgot to mention, if anyone has any questions, they can also raise their hand, and I'll unmute to ask Bhante direct. So the question in the chat, Bhante, it says, Venerable Bhante, it's on the talk, is the positive and negative inherently built into any situation? I presume the positive and negative are also based on individual perception based on their grasping or aversion.
Yes, good thought. Now, there is no positive or negative inherently built into a situation. It's the mind that will create, or it's the perception that will create either the positive or the negative. No situation is inherently positive or negative. That's the whole idea of today's discussion. In nature, it is all about this duality. Nothing is inherently positive or negative. It's our minds that will create this separation. It's our minds that will establish good. As a result, the bad follows. It's our minds that will establish positive. As a result, negative follows. Right? So you have to understand, inherently no situation is either positive nor negative. It's the perception. It's our individual mind that will create this filter.
Thank you, Bhante. That was that was really helpful question as well, because let me just see whether there's any other questions, hands raised or anything. No, at the moment there aren't any more questions, but whilst we're waiting for any questions, I think that question really was quite valuable as well, because I was just thinking, Bhante, in line with what Bhante was saying about the polarity, so are we sort of like accepting nature as it is in the present moment. Just as the person said, it's our minds, I suppose it's our defilements in the mind that creates all the, well, I suppose the havoc, the likes and the dislikes and the judgments, etc. So in order to avoid this polarity of the yin and the yang, would one just sort of like, and also practice if you see the arising of something and see the cessation, then everything we see that it's changing constantly, and we show that to the mind. That's one. Would that be one way? Or when do we actually also be able to make choices with wisdom in the present moment? Or am I confusing the whole lot?
Right.
Thank you,
So
Bhante.
the thing is that it doesn't matter that the situations of the world is inherently neither the positive nor negative. Our minds are always creating this filter. So currently we are in this filter, no, we are in the perception of things. That's how we experience things. Likes and dislikes appear. You can't deny that. This is our reality. We live in our mind. We are experiencing a unique world in our minds. Right? So that's where we are. So how to come out of this? That's the very practice or the meditation. Gradually in your meditation, doing the daily walking, doing the daily sitting, doing the daily mindfulness, little by little, your practice matures and you get to experience how the likes and dislikes appear. I think a few weeks ago we have been discussing about this. We encouraged the group to observe the likes and dislikes of the mind. When certain situations come, you prefer that situation, you have likes in your mind. When certain situations you don't like that situation, you naturally resist that situation. Right? So we encouraged few weeks ago simply to observe likes and dislikes of your mind. Right? So that observation is the way out of this. Otherwise, no matter we think that the outside world is without this duality, in our mind, all we are experiencing is the duality. Right? So how to go out of it? That's the whole practice. Allow things to arise, allow things to cease, and continuously do the mindful observation. Time after time, things arise. Time after time, things cease. You keep watch. That's the whole idea. And in the process, the mind will naturally evolve and you get to experience the reality more and more.
Thank you, Bhante. That's really encouraging. Yeah, to show the mind, the both sides of the coin. We have Bhante. We have another question in the chat, which I'll just quickly ask, if that's okay with Bhante. Bhante, with surrendering to nature, whatever happens is accepted, but there are still likes and dislikes operating in the mind, but they are simply observed.
Yes,
That's the
that practice is good. You can surrender to the situations, but still the likes and dislikes, they follow in your mind. So when the likes and dislikes follow, what you can do is simply observe that there are likes and dislikes. Usually what happens is that when the likes and dislikes appear, we encourage those likes and dislikes. We resist certain situations. We try to hold on to certain situations. Right? So that way we get lost in these likes and dislikes. That's how we usually function. But now the practitioner is encouraged to observe without getting carried away. with these likes and dislikes. So that's good practice. Continue and see.
Thank you, Bhante. That's really helpful advice. Now we are reaching the end of the session, and there aren't any more questions. So what I'll do is I'll conclude the session, if that's okay, Bhante. And thank you everyone who sent in reports and asked questions. And I would like to, on behalf of the organizers, would like to thank Venerable DhammaKusala Thero for his continued valuable guidance in this program. And especially this morning's talks was really helpful as well, along with the others. And also the Chief Abbot of Nissarana, Vanaya, Venerable Bhante Udariyagama Dhammajiva Mahathero, who initiated this program to help us in the Dhamma and be mindful. And may these merits help them in improving their own practice. I would also like to thank all the organizers who are maintaining and managing this program for our benefit, and also much merit to everyone who participated today, and everyone who is listening to us by live stream over the YouTube, and or any downloads that can listen to the recordings from Nissarana Vanaya website. And I think, as usual, we will meet next week, the session on Saturday. It'll be at 1 p.m. Sri Lankan time, and UK time will be around about the usual 7:30. And then I think that'll be the end of today's session, and wish everyone a happy and mindful week ahead. Thank you all, and see you next week. I think Tarandu will now end the Zoom program.